Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to this IULM FLOW talk. I'm Federica Riccieri. I'm Delegated of Director for Sustainability at IULM University, and I'm truly pleased today to open the FLOW talk held on the occasion of the Earth Day. As you may know, the IULM FLOW talk format was created to foster open and meaningful conversation about the most pressing issues of our time, from sustainability and climate change to innovation and social impact. And today's edition is no exception. We are honored to host a guest whose mission is to raise awareness and drive action on the climate crisis through science, communication, and especially, I would say, concrete solution. In his speech entitled How to Survive a Climate Crisis and Solve It, Giovanni will address an issue that is increasingly evident, with rising global temperatures, more frequent extreme weather events, and significant impact on ecosystem and human societies. One other important thing that Giovanni will do is debunking common myths on as many myths persist on climate crisis. So just few words on Giovanni. Giovanni is an energy and environmental engineer, a committed climate activist who brings clarity to a complex and technical topics such as the one of climate change. He has been the spokesperson for the climate movement Fridays for Future Italy and a prominent voice on climate action. Just to mention a few of his other past and current experiences, in 2019 he launched Emergenza Climatina, one of Italy's first climate-focused podcast, and delivered a TEDx talk titled Climate Crisis for Dummies, How to Know and Solve It. Today, he collaborates with the NGO Save the Planet, that most of you would know, and he hosts a daily news podcast by LifeGate called The News from Planet Earth that was recently recognized by Spotify as one of the 12 most trustworthy news podcasts in Italy. So please join me in welcoming Giovanni. Good morning, Giovanni, and thank you again for being with us. The floor is yours.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Sorry, just one little things like in regards to questions. If you have any question you want to pose to Giovanni, you just need to write the question in the chat, and I will speak it out loud and ask Giovanni to answer. Thank you again, Giovanni.
Thank you, Federica. I'm very honored to be here. I was at IULM some weeks ago for another couple of lectures about podcasting and communication. So I'm sort of back again here. So thanks a lot. I'm very pleased to be here. I'm very honored also because I think it's a special moment in which we are, having this conversation. I think it's a time in which many of us are asking questions about sustainability or climate change or transition. Like it's going to be as we were doing before, like everything changed, or like the thing they are going on the same as before or differently. So I think it's very interesting to have this conversation right now. So I'm going to start my timer here. So in 3-4 hours you're going to be free. No, I'm joking. Like probably in 30 minutes you're going to be free. I'm going to share my screen so you can see the images you're going to. Okay, so Hot Shots, it was a very intelligent film from a very ironic film, Hot Shots, how to survive a climate crisis and solve it, actually, which is one of the most important thing we have to know. So Federica already told a lot of stuff about me. So ciao. So I'm Giovanni Mori. I do some very different things, but like I try to put all those different things together. So communicating and also doing climate activism is really sometimes very, very close to being an energy engineer in this time. I'm starting from this sentence, which if we were in live, I would ask you who, according to you, has said this sentence, which is what we are doing to the planet now, degrading surfaces, polluting waters, and adding greenhouse gases at an unprecedented rate. All of this is new in the history of the Earth. There will be no profit for anyone if we continue to destroy our planet. This sentence could be said by, I don't know, Pope Francis, or maybe Greta Thunberg, or maybe, I don't know, Al Gore, or some, sort of climate leader. While probably I'm going to, surprise a little bit you, telling you that this sentence is from Miss Margaret Thatcher in 1989. So 36 years ago. Margaret Thatcher at the Montreal conference said this sentence, this very clear sentence. It seems like actually you could hear this sentence yesterday or 2 years ago from Pope Francis, and it is true, because it's quite straight, it's quite plain, and probably we can say that Margaret Thatcher would not be the best friend from Greta Thunberg, like probably not from the same part, or sharing so many thoughts. But actually, science was already clear at a point in which Miss Margaret Thatcher, one of the most prominent neoliberal leaders in 1989, could deliver this speech to the world. And actually, Montreal conference was a very important conference, maybe one of the most successful climate conference, diplomat conference we had in the world, because we sort of solved the ozone hole. If we didn't solve it there, banning the CFC gases, the gases in our spray, probably now we had a lot of problems. If you just go out in a sunny day, after 10 minutes, you will probably have your skin suffering because of that. And actually, we solved that problem. So it's a big victory for us, for the planet. And after that, they already knew that we have this huge problem of greenhouse gases, which are making the planet inhabitable. And we know it since a lot of decades. What happened in the last decades, and why we are so slow in acting about all of it? Well, starting from this, very easy to link to climate crisis image. So, a polar bear, and this has been the classic image of climate crisis for years. So, an animal very far from us. I don't know if some of you has any polar bear in your garden as a pet. I don't think so. But actually, climate crisis is much more worse than that. Climate crisis means a lot of wildfires. These are wildfires in Australia in 2019, and they killed sort of 500 million animals. Also, about 80 people has been killed from these huge wildfires. This is Greenland. So this is a continent, this is an island made mainly by ice, but these dogs are running over water because of the very warm days. And actually, all the geopolitical interest in Greenland in the last months, it's exactly for this melting of ice, which could cover up and discover many resources as fossil gas and other minerals that you can extract, exactly because you have the melting of the water. There is one just little particular. If all the water from Greenland will melt, the sea level will rise from 7 meters. That means around 1 billion people around the world suffering from flooding in their homes. Actually, we have also many more extreme events from this. So these hurricanes, sort of hurricanes, this is a tropical cell flood, but actually this is not in Texas. This is in Brescia, in my city. So in the very middle of the Pianura Padana Valley, the Po Valley in the north of Italy. And actually we had never experienced a phenomenon like that before 2019. And actually this is a thing from Texas, from this very vast from this very vast territory, and it's a very brand new thing for us. Also, the drought, so the thing that we have less and less water raining for very long periods. So this was a lake completely disappeared in our alpine region, and actually this is the photo of that lake in 2022. Ceresole Reale Lake, like, just disappeared because you have very small precipitation, very small rain, and also very small precipitation from snow. and we know what's happening in our glacier, and actually our glacier are completely melting. This is Marmolada Glacier, the only one we have in Dolomite region, and probably before 2035 all the glaciers are going to be gone, and they are also collapsing. Like this one in 2022 collapsed and killed 15 people, which have been covered by snow and by glacier. And at the same time we have this paradox, like we have no water and at the same time very much water. So this is Emilia Romagna. In 2023 they have this huge flooding in Romagna, in Bologna region, and you have these two very close events at the beginning of May and then at 15th of May, and you have these very close events, very strong rain, but like this 15-day distance, actually they were two events which from a hydrological point of view, they have a time of return, so a statistical time in which they will come back of 2000 year, and that those 2000 year now became 15 days of two extreme events very close one to each other. That's why lot of rivers collapsed, and a lot of rivers then flooded the entire area. And also it's very easy also to understand why, for example, it's very hot in summer, so it's easier to understand why in summer we have this peak, incredible peak. For example, this is Syracuse in Sicily, almost 50 degrees in Europe. Okay, in Italy we have this European record, and just about the things before, we have 33 cities in Italy which are at risk of being flooded in the next actually 70 years. If a kid has been born, like I don't know, my nephew Leonardo was born in 2022, so for sure is going to see 2100, like in the next 70, 80, 90 years. A lot of people alive right now will see these 33 cities in Italy which are at risk of flooding. Actually, the capital of Indonesia, Jakarta, it's very at risk from flooding, from being covered by water, and they are displacing it, and they are creating a new capital called Nusantara. Okay, and why all of this is happening? We know it very well. I think this is one of the most well studied thing in the last decades. We went to the moon, and the thing the day after they started studying is how much we are heating the planet. And this is sort of the history of our in our books we study at school. This is year zero, so Jesus was born sort of here, and in the last 2000 years this is the temperature which is going a little bit up, a little bit down, but actually it was a little bit refreshing the planet in the last centuries. Here we invented the steam engine, so a great invention. We started extracting coal, and then we started extracting oil and then gas. So a lot of invention. We went to the moon thanks to oil and gas and those magic fossil fuels. But at the same time, this was the consequence. So some heating showing up here in the last decades. But there is one thing I have to tell you: the graph is not stopping here. The graph actually stopping here. So that's the rise of temperature we are experimenting right now on our planet. So it's a thing we have never seen as a species before. It's a new thing for our species on this planet. So it's a rise of so sharp and so fast. That's the thing that make it so dangerous. Because we already had changes of the temperatures, but never so fast and so sharp. And actually, we can see like very clearly from this graph. So we have a lot of data about the rise of the temperature about our entire planet. This is 19th century and 20th century. You can see the planet is heating a little bit in some part of in some region, in some continent, but in the second part of the 20th century, you can definitely see how the entire planet is burning, is really heating up. And now, actually, the graph stops here, but like we see also Europe as one of the fastest heating continent in the world. Actually, we are heating at the double rate than the other part of the world. And if I'm telling you that, the planet is 1 degree more or 1.5 degrees more than when we started, actually is not that much. 1 degree is not a thing. If I'm, telling your room is heating 1 degree, but I'm telling you in another way, in the way James Hansen told it at the US Parliament in 1989. 1 degree is about 4,000 nuclear bomb of thermal energy exploding in the atmosphere every day. Actually, 400,000 nuclear bombs of thermal energy, freeing their energy in the atmosphere every day. So a lot of thermal energy, which then it liberates itself through those extreme events. So it's a lot of energy we are putting there, and those extreme events are definitely caused by this kind of energy. And I don't know if you have any tattoo. If you want to have a tattoo, probably the number you have to tattoo on yourself is 1.5, which is the most important number for the human species, actually, because all more than 1.5 heating, it's becoming really dangerous for our species. And in between those 0.5 degree, from 1.5 until 2 degrees, here we have a lot of difference. For example, in those 0.5 degree, we have the double of extreme precipitation. We have a lot of island which are going to be submerged from water. And actually, guys, we are heading through plus 3 degree of heating, so plus 0.9 actually, but we are sort of there. So even worse than 2 degrees, and it's really a world that we don't want to see what's happening. And this is, for example, in the last 2 years, 2023, the melting of the Arctic Sea, or this is the melting of the Antarctic Sea. So it's really level we have never seen before, and we perfectly know whose fault. We perfectly know it's coal, it's also oil, it's fossil fuels, and it's also fossil fuel companies, because fossil fuel companies knew since 70s, knew since decades that they were causing the climate crisis. It's also everything is written down, for example, in Exxon internal memos, saying, okay, if we are going to extract so much oil, so much fossil gas, we are, heating up the planet and probably melting the poles. So they definitely knew since decades. Also, I'm bringing you a human perspective, which I think is very interesting. Also, because this study has been published in 2022 from a Swiss professor, which I know, and he started thinking about himself, and he started thinking about his life, because he has a very young son born in 2020, and so he was asking himself how the life of my son will be different from my life, from a life of a guy who was born in the 70s. And so he drew out this graph, and in his research you can see, like, for example, my parents were born here in 1955, and so their life was sort of here. So they were born here and they raised here and arrived at 70 years old, something like here. The scientist Thierry was born here and arrived here. His son, or for example my nephew, was born here, and they're going to live their life in this kind of planet, which is a completely different planet with respect, for example, with the one of my parents. Well, it's a completely different planet. In any case, in any scenario, we are going to be very low emission scenario or very high emission scenario. From these climate stripes, you can definitely understand how much hotter this is going to be. And we have to be very clear about this. This is a climate problem, this is environmental problem, but at the same time, this is also an economic problem. This is a social problem. So I'm going to tell you just one example. The guy here on the boat is called Jeff Bezos. Probably you can heard of it. You heard of it. And just in 90 minutes, so the timing of a football match, in 90 minutes, this guy is going to meet the CO2 you are going to meet in an entire life. So just as the time you're watching Inter Bayern Munich, he's going to meet all the CO2 you're going to meet in your entire life. And this is an inequality problem, a huge inequality problem we already had. Here you have the poorest 50% of the world population, so around 4 billion people. And here in black you have just 80 the 80 most rich people in the world, and they emit sort of 15% of the total emission of the world, while the poorest 50% emit just 7%, so the half. And this means a lot. Also, this means a lot when you want to solve this problem, because you can see I was in Glasgow at COP26, so COP are this huge climate negotiation, and you definitely see those difference when you start negotiation about climate, because negotiation about climate means negotiation about a lifestyle, about your future, about the technology you can afford and the technology you can have. So we really have to keep in mind that this is a big thing when we have to talk about at a world level about climate solution. Okay, so what? So what we have to do if we want this to solve this huge problem? I'm going to tell you at least one positive thing. We know very well what to do. The problem is not we don't know what to do. The problem is not we are not doing fast enough. But we know that we have to dramatically cut down emissions. So we are sort of here. We need to cut down the emission, and the best moment in which we have to do it is not right now. We have to cut it as fast as we can, because we are going to to earn some time for the future, because it counts a lot. The velocity in which we are reducing and we are cutting emission, because maybe in the next decades we are going to develop also some way to absorb CO2, but it's really a thing which is very, very far away in time. Like my thesis 6 years ago was about absorbing CO2, but it's really a thing that maybe it's going to come in the next years or decades. So we in the meantime have to cut down our emission the double we are doing right now. And where do emissions come from? We have many sectors, but we can very easily see that energy is mainly the main sector. So the fossil fuel sector is really the one who's driving climate crisis. So the energy used in industry, then transportation and buildings and many other stuff. But at the same time, we know that devastating our ecosystems like deforestation and other the peatlands, which are very misconsidered with respect to forests, are very important as well. So changing ecosystems and using fossil fuels. At the same time, we perfectly know, for example, all the solutions we need to put in place. This is Drawdown, and I think is one of the most interesting project about the solution, because it's an American project, and they are putting in order the 100 most efficient solutions to solve climate crisis. And it's very interesting because I'm an energy engineer. I'm very interested in energy, but you can definitely see from here that energy is just the yellow part. So for example, wind turbines, we know that wind turbines are going to be one of the most important solution, or solar farms, or rooftop solar, geothermal, whatever. All this part in yellow are linked to energy, but it's just a part of the solutions. For example, in red you have food. You have how much food we eat, but mainly how much food we waste. Around 1/3 of the food around the world produced is then wasted, is never eaten. And for example, it's very important also what we eat. plant-rich diet, is a very elegant way to say we have to eat much less meat, much less animal deriving products, because they are 10, 30, 100 more impactful than potatoes, than tomatoes, than fruit. It's just a matter of efficiency. I'm going to put it very plain. With 100 kilogram of grain, you can feed 25 people or one cow, which will then feed one people. So it's very much a question of efficiency. Also, for example, 80% of the soy around the world is then gave to animals. So again, it's very, very, very less efficient than, for example, eating things which are planted. Also, for example, in green, you can see how much saving ecosystem is a very efficient solution. Also, one very curious thing, in violet here, in purple, let's say purple, educating girls and family planning. So granting the fundamental rights also to women, allowing them to study, to auto-determine themselves. It's a very efficient way to cut down emission. It's very well, very well explained in much, providing fundamental rights is useful in providing, self people who can decide, for example, how many children they want to have, when they want to have, if they want to have children. So that's very powerful as well. And also it's very economically convenient. So we perfectly know how much this is going to cost us, and we know how much we are going to save. So it's very convenient also from an economic point of view. But obviously, right now, it is not if you have to move from the status quo. So that's the way we have to challenge it. Also, for example, this is a graph from IPCC.
Yes. Sorry, can I interrupt you just one second?
I don't see the chat, so yes.
No problem. We have a question, and the question is, how can we integrate progress with emission cut?
Oh, that's a very easy one.
How does the progress match with the need of cutting emissions?
Well, I'm showing actually this graph to you, and I think this graph can answer quite well to your question, because that's really a fundamental question. This is a graph from IPCC, so let's say the Avengers from the climate, which tell us which are the most efficient solution, and also, for example, how much convenient they are. So if they are in blue, they are actually cheaper than the things we are doing right now. So for example, let's see for the blue one regarding energy. So wind energy and solar energy for many people around the world are already cheaper. And so if you ask me about progress, I think this is progress. So, installing a lot of wind energy and solar energy, which are already cheaper way to produce energy. I'm going to provide you a very easy example. Pakistan is not one of the richest country in the world. We know it's been very hard hit by a climate catastrophe in the last 2 years from a flooding. And what's Pakistan doing? It's installing a lot of solar energy because it's the cheapest way to provide electricity to their people. And they are doing just because it's cheap. So obviously, if you are China, or if you are Bangladesh, maybe you already have a lot of coal and you are putting your bet on it. But at the same time, I think progress is really going along with transition. Also, we can do seeing as well, like from this reduce food waste. It's the thing we have to do because it's just to do, it's right to do, and not just because it's very climate impactant. At the same time, it's the same way. Progress, I think it means also wellness and living on a safe planet. And for example, we know that pollution, it's killing a lot of people around the world. And yes, we have to speak about jobs, and also, for example, wind energy, solar energy efficiency provide, according to McKinsey, so not according to, Greta Thunberg, according to McKinsey, one of the biggest economic consultancy firm, provide the double or 3 times more the jobs with respect to fossil fuel sector. So it's even more, job intensive. I think the way they mean is job intensive. So it's actually, if we do a just transition, we can, safeguard a lot of jobs, much more than right now, and also we can provide a lot of well-being to a lot of people, much more than now, because we have to be aware that if we are not doing anything, a lot of what we know right now, it's going to be maybe devastated. To I don't know, to who are you going to sell cars if nobody can allow a car because he has to pay for his house, which has been flooded. And it's a very concrete speech, this one. So if I for example, the insurances, they are the one who are pushing more for climate transition, because they know how much they are going to pay for the damages. And I think progress is also preventing those damages. So letting people, having maybe another job, and we have to form people and to follow the people which are most fragile. But at the same time, for example, a lot of economists says that if we are going to have this transition made right, they are going also to have a lot of economic redistribution. So again, many more people over the poverty threshold, for example. So actually it's very compatible with this transition. Obviously we have to change many things from now, for sure. That's what politics should do. And I think the last part is exactly about this. So what we have to do, especially to provide, a right transition, so a transition that doesn't, forget about people. What's on us? So mainly, what are the things that we can personally do to reduce our impact? And I think I simplified them in a very, very short way. No, this graph just, the PNG here just faulted, but like, it's TEF, which is transportation, energy, and food, are the sectors on which we can act more, because I think 80% of our emission come from this sector. So the way we move, again, for example, talking about progress, I think it's much more progressive, much more intelligent, a city which provide you the possibility to move by bike for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 kilometers, with respect to car, or to have a public transportation, because you cut a lot the pollution. We have seen Paris, what has done in the last years, and Paris cut pollution by 80%, just providing more public transportation and the possibility to move by bikes. Obviously we are speaking about, for example, city or big city. Energy, which again is the cheapest form of energy right now, is solar, and then also wind energy. But we can save up to $12 trillion by switching to renewable energy from fossil energy. And also the energy we provide to our homes, to our offices, to our university. This is one of the most impactful thing we can do. And also food. So what we eat every day, it's very, very important. According to the Lancet, so a very important, it's actually an healthy journal, okay, the Lancet, and tells us that from an health point of view, we should cut down 80-90% of our meat consumption. So actually the best diet for us is also the best diet for the planet, and that's incredible. Luckily, we know that we have to eat much more fruit and vegetables, also carbohydrates, much more than things from animals, which are also much more healthy. Also, we can do a lot of stuff. For example, we have to inform ourselves, so to avoid greenwashing and to try to understand better what's going on. Also, we have to raise our voice. Probably if we are starting right now to raise our voice and say, okay guys, I want to do something, I want to activate, I want to, we have to do something. Probably if you're doing right now in 2025, you are really one of the pioneers still of the people asking for a change. Still, a lot of people are not asking for that, and actually, we are under evaluating the amount of people that wants this change, that can, make the life of millions of people better, and probably our life as well. And so we have to raise our voice in our, in our neighborhood, in our school, in our, I don't know, in our group of friends, in our university. And that's really makes the difference, because it's very human connection, and the human connection is the most efficient thing when you want to convince other people to make a change. It's not graph, it's not engineer, it's not our set data that are going to convince people. It's your voice, it's your tone of voice, which is going to convince your friends and the people you love, the people who estimate you, the people who listen to you, that we can do something. And at the same time, we have to activate the community. That's maybe the most powerful thing we can do. I think it's being said in the best way possible from Bill McKibben, which is the founder from 350point.org. Best thing you can do as an individual is being less an individual and being more part of a collective. And, also keep in mind that we are much more effective if we are asking stuff as a collective, as many people together. That's really making the difference. And I think this is really the most important thing we have to remember, that we can change the things. And this is here to remember us that it's possible to change things. These were us in 2019, and actually, if you were in the square in 2019, you participated in the Guinness World Record biggest event for a thing in the world. So 8 million people around the world went in the street on that day, asking for a rapid change about climate change. And I'm telling you one thing, when I also asked myself when I went in the square with this cartel, my was about saving bears, because the bears is really at risk for climate crisis. I was asking myself, is this working? Is this in any way functional to change stuff? And actually it is. You can definitely see from here. In 2015, we had Paris Agreement, the first world agreement about climate change. So it was just 10 years ago, but nothing changed for years in net zero emission pledges. So countries did nothing for years until a lot of people take the streets. When a lot of people take the streets, so newspaper have to tell about this, on television you speak about it, and many media started speaking about it, and books, and also art, and marketing, and everything changed there in 2019. And you can definitely see how many policy documents speaking about net zero emission you have after 2019. And the world changed, actually, there really changed. The point is, it's not changing fast enough to follow the gravity of the climate crisis. That's the point. The world is changing, but still not fast enough. And so we are sort of here. We are really in the middle of this thing, and we have to decide on which side we want to be for the next years, for the next decades, because this is our future. Actually, it's the future we are going to live. And I think this is very important to take these decisions right now, and to also bring this thing wherever you are. In your part of world, you can really do a world of difference. And also, last but not least, wine also is very at risk from climate crisis. So if you don't want to do for the next generation, if you don't want to do it for your future, do it for the wine, or do it for the beers, because also the beers, it's really at risk for climate crisis. So I'm done. Merry climate crisis, everyone.
Thank you, Giovanni. Thank you for your presentation. Well, I think that you touched some important points, and I think that also concerning the question that we received before, we should be defining what we mean by progress first. I mean, what is progress really? Is progress some technological advancements that makes our life easier, but at the same time pollutes the environment because of the heating of the data center, because of energy consumption? Can we really define that a progress? If it's destroying our planet, and at the end of the day, will not be allowing other companies, other people, first of all, to live in our planet in 20 or 15 years. So the big question I think we have to ask ourselves is, what do we mean by progress? And if something that goes against the environment, generally, not only emissions, but I would say against the environment, can be considered as progress. Maybe it's just something that makes our life easier. But do we really consider that a progress? I wouldn't say that. So I would say that as I see progress is and must be aligned. So any new initiatives, any new technology should make our life easier and our life better, but should also save the planet. So I think that it's also important to define what we mean with these terms. And the other important things that you have said before is, how can we make the difference? Okay, we can go in the squares, we can protest, we can do everything, but I think that before that, we can change the way we live. Of course, it's important to make our voice heard. That's for sure is important, but it's more also important to change how we live every day. Okay, so if we take the car to go to the university, for instance, instead of public transportations, clearly not everyone can. Maybe those who are living far from the university or far from the workplace, they will need to be using a car. But I mean, we should ask ourselves the question, how can we ourselves in our life be more sustainable? So thank you for touching all these points, Giovanni. I was wondering if there are questions, but I don't see questions appearing on the on our chat. So I will have a couple of questions for you then. As we all know, recently influential figures like Trump and Musk have made statements that appear to somehow downplay the urgency of the climate crisis, and they are somehow defending the fossil fuels industry. So what potential effect might these stances have on public perception, according to your view, also on European policy making and the momentum of climate initiatives, I would say, globally?
Well, that's a tough question, because also we are going to see it like later. So we are going to see in probably in months or years, but we can already say something. And I think that, actually, taking your words, the most dangerous thing they are doing with those words is the perception from people. Because if you are in charge and you are in a responsibility role, you have to take very carefully what you are saying about those very important topic. Also, because, as already said, the decision of today will determine the tomorrow. It's not like we cannot study in the last 2 days, like for an exam. You cannot solve all the thing in the last 2 years. We know what happens if you study for an exam just the 2 days before. Doesn't go very well usually. And that's the same thing. And they are, the most dangerous thing is they are downplaying the importance of the topic. Also because for example, coal. Let's talk about coal. In the first term, Trump really tried to save coal from the US extracted coal, but like it was already done. Coal was already a dying fossil, a dying energy vector, and so he really put a lot of effort, but was already so inconvenient from many point of view that nobody was really wanting coal no more. And right now he's doing the same for other stuff. So he's doing again for coal, which is it's already sort of done, at least for US, sort of for Europe as well. And the point is, he cannot decide whether to extract more or less. That's the point. The market is determining itself the same. And actually, I'm telling you also this: the record of extraction from fossil gas and oil was under Biden, it wasn't under Trump. So Trump can say drill, baby, drill, but he can just make things easier for the companies to go on and on extracting. And that's what politics should do. And also, answering to the question about obstacle, the obstacle are politics is not being bold enough to say, okay, enough, we have to put some data, some date, some threshold, and over it we are not going. For example, like for cars, we know that in Europe we are banning new, not old, but new oil and gas, gasoline or diesel car from 2035. And actually, car makers were ready to do it at 2030. In UK, they are going to do in 2030 because the world is already going towards electric vehicles. I'm telling you, for example, Ethiopia, it's going to have just new vehicles, electric vehicles. So who we are going to sell our marvelous gasoline and diesel car in 2040 when nobody is going to want them? So it's really a question about technology, but also innovation, and also foreseeing the future. So it's really a strategic question. It's an industrial question, and we are losing it. And if we are again slowing it down as Trump is doing, and also European Union is doing right now with respect to the last years, really we are risking to be the periphery of the world. So the ones we are going to be, to having our gasoline stuff when nobody in the world is going to have it. We were the first in Italy, one of the first nation installing solar panels, and we ruined our super industry about that because we let it go, and we preferred our government and also our companies are preferring fossil gas, which is actually also binding us to our nations as Russia, as Libya, as Egypt, or United States when we are importing natural gas. While if we are having, for example, renewable energy, we can have cheaper energy and also not depending from other countries. So it's quite, there are many interests, obviously, for example, in the automotive sector, which tried again to downplay the transition, so hoping change won't happen. But actually transition is happening, and actually is happening very faster and much more push, for example, from China or from India than from United States. So United States, it's lagging very behind. 80% of the energy, of the clean energy installed in the last year comes from China. So they are already dominating the market from that point of view. And because we didn't think this would happen, and we cannot allow ourselves to do again the same error. That's why we have to run fast. Also, to reduce climate emission, obviously, and cut emission, and also cutting pollution, because we can breathe finally better if we are cutting fossil fuels. But also from a jobs point of view, from a strategy, from a competitiveness point of view, that's the only way we can achieve any goals in the future. And again, about the obstacles, they are the status quo. It's really the thing that we have to challenge, because renewable energy is cheaper if you build new plants. So for example, India, China are building a lot of new plants, so renewable energy. If you have to change what you already have, it's much more difficult. So Europe, called the old world, not for nothing, it's more difficult to change it, because I'm telling you this, probably India is going to have 100% electric vehicles before Europe, probably much more, probably, because they are passing from no vehicles directly to electric vehicles. It's like passing from no phones to smartphones. That's the technological change they are doing, while we are here asking ourselves, maybe we should go slower because maybe, and we are losing it. We are definitely losing also the competition at the global level, while Europe can remain relevant, just remaining, competitive on this topic.
Thank you, Giovanni. I see there are no other questions from our public, so I take this opportunity to thank you for staying with us and for this speech and this talk you gave. And I hope, we will wish you a good day to you and to all our audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chu.